All right, everybody, and welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. Um, again, my name is John O'Sullivan. These are interesting times, and thank you so much. We had almost 1,000 people sign up to be here today. I only had 100 seats in the room, but we are recording this, so just so you know, you're welcome to turn off your camera and everything. I have muted everyone's microphone for now. You can turn off your video if you like. And yeah, we're going to put this out to everyone who signed up, but maybe couldn't be here this morning as well. So thank you so much for being here. I'm on with James. James, you there?
Hey, what's up, buddy? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you perfectly.
Hey.
Awesome. So, James, thanks for being here. I think you all know, if you follow our work, James Leith from Unleash the Athlete, also the master of editing our podcast and all that. So, listen, here's the plan for today. I want to go through a couple of the things, the little bits and pieces of advice that I've collected over the last couple of weeks. Then I'm going to let James do the same. He just did an amazing webinar yesterday with his group, um, talking about some ways to kind of hold a virtual practice. And I thought it was fantastic, and said, would love to have him on. And then we're going to try to leave some time for a Q&A at the end. You do have the ability to unmute your mic, but if people all start unmuting their mic, it's just going to get really loud and messy. So probably the best way to ask a question is down at the bottom. There's a little chat. So if you scroll your cursor over your screen at the bottom where it says mute, stop video, all that sort of stuff, at the bottom there's a little chat function. You can go right in there and post a question there, and we'll try to get to some of those as well. At the end of this as well, we'll send you the recording of this. And also what we will do is I'll send you my notes and James's notes of everything we taught here as well. So again, thank you so much for being here. These are definitely unprecedented times. Will do, before I get started, one more caveat, which is, like probably many of you, my children are not in school. They are home. It's at 9 a.m. in Oregon. They're just getting out of bed. I've, and so hopefully they won't make too much noise in the background. They might, never know. And number two, a couple of geese have decided to take up residence right outside my house. And so if you hear lots of honking in the background, that's what that noise is as well. So anyway, all right, so we'll get rolling here. What was really interesting is I came across one of my favorite writers is a guy named Seth Godin, and you've probably all heard me talk about him before. And he seems to just be very good with timely advice for people like me. And so, of course, this morning, I always read his blog. It comes out every day. He writes one, and it was pretty cool. And I just wanted to start and read that to you. He said, calm also has a coefficient, right? Panic loves company, yet calm is our practical, efficient, rational alternative. If you're on a crowded plane and one person is freaking out about turbulence, the panic will eventually peter out. On the other hand, if 6 people are freaking out, it's entirely possible that it'll spread and overtake the rest of the plane. Panic needs multiple nodes to spread. The same is true with a cabin of 10-year-olds at summer camp. One homesick kid usually comes around and ends up enjoying the summer because being surrounded by others who are okay makes us okay. But 3 or 4 homesick kids can change the entire dynamic. And then he goes on to talk about what causes this panic. And he talks about Twitter, right? Twitter has been engineered to maximize panic. Calm is penalized, panic is amplified. And if you're hanging out in real life with people who spend a lot of time on social media and news sites, you've invited all those people into that circle as well. Okay. So what he just recommends, curate your incoming, stay off Twitter, do the work, be calm. Whatever needs doing most is better than panic. Okay. And I thought that was just great advice for me starting this day. And then also, this is what our kids need from us, right? They hear what we say, but they remember what we do, and they remember how we act. Okay. And so this is what I would love today, is that if we can all leave here bringing some calm to the sports situation, being calm about how we can support our kids as they get better. Um, I think that would be a really, really great accomplishment to all of us. So, again, thanks for being here. Um, if you are watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching this when we post it on Facebook later, there's a link below to go download the recording and grab the notes from this as well, so you can get that for yourself. Okay. All right. So I just recently was painting my office behind me here. And in doing that, I was going through a lot of old books and things like that, and figuring out what to keep and what not. And I found this little scriggly piece of paper shoved in one of my folders. And I looked at it, and it was notes that I took at a talk I was at like 5 years ago, from a woman named Madeline Levine. And Madeline Levine, she's from Stanford. She's a researcher. She's an author, has written many books about parenting and things like that. And on this little piece of paper, I found what I thought was just super cool advice, right? And what she said that day, and what I wrote down on this little piece of paper, was, under the right circumstances, children will develop in optimal ways. And of course, she wasn't thinking about what we're going through in this moment now, but she laid out a couple of things that I thought were really, really important, that could provide kind of a framework for our talk today. So when we think about who's in front of me, when we think about who's that child or who are those athletes that I'm coaching, they all have different needs, and they all have different things that they need from us. As I look through the names of the people who are on this right now, we have, I have friends who are running youth clubs on here. I have friends who are advising and working with Olympic athletes or potential Olympic athletes who don't even know if there's going to be a Tokyo Olympics. So we all have different people in front of us. But I think her little bullet points really apply to all of this. So here's what she said. She said, number one, as we're going through this stuff, define success and expectations, right? So what does success look like? What are you going through right now? What can you control? What can you accomplish with the time that you have in this moment, versus what can you do, and how can you best use that time? Right. There's certainly those of us in, a pool, and all the pools are closed. You're not going to be able to swim. Those kids who are on a team sport, you're not going to be able to get together with your team. But what can you do in these moments? And what does that look like? Right. So how can we best use this time? How can we best understand how can I best use these months, and what's that look like? And if I can kind of define that now, that, yeah, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to practice this many minutes a week, and I'm going to work on these couple of things. And at the end of this, whether it's weeks or months, I can measure how I've progressed. I think that's a really, really powerful thing. All right. So that was number one that she said. I added to that as well. I think our job here as coaches and as parents is to keep everyone in the loop. So if I'm a coach and I'm asking kids to do something, I want to keep their parents in the loop as well, right? How can I, let them understand, hey, here's how you can support your son. Here's how you can support your daughter in this moment. Okay. So that was number one. Number two, enforce limits and consequences. I thought this was really good too, right? All behavior, all limits, they don't go out the window. Now, we can certainly relax things. We can certainly say, hey, okay, I understand that times are a little bit different. I saw some advice from some homeschooling parents recently who said, you can't do 7 hours of school a day with your homeschool kid. It doesn't work that way. And when you really start doing the math of lunch and time between periods and maybe PE and things like that. Yeah, kids aren't really doing 6, 7 hours of school. They recommend sort of 2 hours for elementary, and maybe 2 to 3 for middle school, and maybe 3 to 4 for high school. So when we're asking our kids to do stuff, they have a couple hours of the educational piece, but then they do have more time than ever to do something athletic, to get outside, to do chores, to rake the lawn, to shovel snow wherever you live. So, keep some limits, keep some consequences. There are certain things that they should have to do every single day. All right, number three, honor health and well-being. Right, and certainly in this time right now, kids being healthy, kids eating well, kids getting extra sleep, because guess what? It keeps them healthier. These things all matter, and so let's honor their health. Let's honor their well-being. Let's um, praise the fact that they're getting out there and exercising, that they're making good food choices, that we're helping them make good food choices, that they're getting um, rest, and that they're going out and exercising as well. So honor their health and well-being. Um, Next one, expect best effort and focus on the process. So whatever we're doing here, can we outline for kids, right, that, give your best effort on this, that this might be hard, or this might be somewhat difficult, but it takes time, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to not succeed in the moment. My son has been going out. We have a trampoline in the backyard, and he saw some video the other day of this guy working on some sort of different sort of flip. And so he started working on it on the trampoline so then he could go and do it on the grass. And, he's been videoing himself and watching himself do it. And he's getting closer and closer, and he's twisting his ankle and he's banging his knee. But, honoring that process of, hey, you know what, you can't just watch a video and then turn around and it's going to be perfect. That's not how it works. Right. So, honor that process of getting better. If we're asking our kids, if we're asking our athletes to go work on their skills, can we go out of our way to honor, right, the fact that, hey, these things are hard, and you're not supposed to look as good as the guy or the girl in the video, but work on it, get a little bit better every day. Video yourself on day one, and then turn around and video yourself on day 10 and say, what, I am actually doing that better. Okay, so that's another great one. Never rupture relationships. And I think this is a really hard one now for all of us who are trying to work from home and have our kids running around us all day. It's hard to sometimes just take that deep breath, and I've had to apologize to my kids and my wife as well, as I try to work and I need like internet bandwidth as well. I'm like, hey, you guys can't all be streaming stuff at the same time. I have a business to run. But don't rupture those relationships. So making sure that we're ending on those positive comments, or if it's our own kids, right, we're ending on ending the day with a hug. And one of the things that my family does, and this has just been a really wonderful time, we're very good that when we're all here, we have dinner together every night and we talk about our day. And so now, with no sports in the afternoon, there, I imagine there's a lot of families that are having dinner together night after night for the first time. And so we always start our dinner with like gratitude. What am I thankful for today? And so I think part of not rupturing relationships as well is, let's focus on the gratitude. What am I grateful for? That we're well, that we got to do something fun, that we got to be outside, that we got to spend some time together, or my kids are grateful that they got to beat mom and dad at a board game, or, well, I was going to say ping pong, but that hasn't happened yet. But maybe someday soon here. And then the last piece of advice from Madeline is, build a sense of purpose and responsibility, right? So we have all this time here. Can we help our athletes to have this sense of purpose of, why am I doing this, right? Not, why am I training? Why am I trying to stay healthy? Why am I staying in my house instead of hanging out with my friends? Why are we as a country trying to do this? Right? And a sense of responsibility in terms of, from a sporting perspective, right? We have a responsibility to the world as a human being. We have a responsibility to the community as a human being. But how about our responsibility to our team that, while we're off here, I'm continuing to stay in shape. I'm continuing to improve my game so that when we do get back together, whenever that is, I'm not sitting there like, oh, wow, I haven't done anything in the last couple of weeks, or I'm really not fit, or I'm really not, my touch hasn't gotten better. It's actually gotten worse because I didn't really do any of the things. So if we can instill a sense of purpose and responsibility that, you are supporting your team by doing this stuff on your own time, that would be great. And I think one of the things that is really, really critical is that as as our kids, especially in the US, right, they really don't spend, and not enough of them spend enough time on their own with the ball, right? They go to soccer practice, they go to volleyball practice, they go to hockey, whatever it is. And that's their only time in the sport during that week. And it's really not enough to truly get better. And so this might be the first time ever that it is enforced upon them to actually practice on their own, to work on their weak foot or their weak hand or whatever that is. And so give them that sense of responsibility that, hey, this is this great time for you. Okay. So again, that was Madeline Levine. I forget how to say her last name, but great stuff, right? Right. Define success and expectations, enforce limits and consequences, honor their health and well-being, expect best effort, focus on the process, don't rupture relationships, build a sense of purpose and responsibility. Okay. Now, how can we do this? It's funny, when I wrote Every Moment Matters back and published it back in December, I did a whole chapter on creating an athlete-centered environment. And what does that look like? And what was really interesting about all of that is that this is sometimes hard to do as a coach. I know I struggle with it. Sometimes we just want to get through our stuff. Sometimes we just want to get the answer and move on and practice. Sometimes we just want to fix it for them instead of giving them the space or time to learn. And what's really difficult now is that it has to be an athlete-centered environment. So those of us who have been very, very coach-centric, all of a sudden your players are kind of, treading water because they've always looked for that direction. But now all of a sudden it has to be on them. It has to be on their own. And so it was funny. I was getting ready for today, and I was reading back through that chapter of, understanding who's in front of me, and B, what do they need? And while I'm doing that, right, really recognizing that this environment that I create virtually for my athletes or for my own kids at home has to be athlete centered. And so what does that mean? Number one, the learner takes center stage, right? It's got to be about the kid and what they need and where they are at this time. Number two, they need to be active decision makers in the process. So they have to be able to think about and sort of own this process a little bit of, okay, like maybe here's the schedule and here's what I'm going to work on today and here's what I'm going to work on tomorrow. As coaches or as parents, right, we want to get them to think. We want to get them to create. And so we want to be asking good questions. We want to be asking them, well, what could you do here? How could you work on this? What could you watch? And by doing this, by creating this environment, we help athletes. They gain self-awareness, they self-organize, they become more creative, and they explore, right, new things. Okay. So I want to give you some, before I turn it over to James here, I want to give you some concrete examples of what I have done with the two teams I coach, right? I have 12-year-old boys right now in soccer that I'm coaching, that I'm trying to get to do some stuff here for us in Oregon where I live. everything's basically canceled until May, school, sports. Who knows what's going to happen after that. But for right now, I'm trying to get them to understand, okay, here's some things you can do. So I've been in touch. I use a team communication tool named TeamSnap. I've been in touch with them throughout this process as we canceled and had some uncertainty. Now that we have a little more uncertainty of dates, just yesterday I sent them both groups of teams an email or a TeamSnap email. And what I outlined in it was here's some individual work that you can do on your own. And there's so much of this stuff online right now. I think every sport technique trainer in the world is releasing free 10 videos of, what you can do in soccer or hockey or lacrosse when you're just practicing with one other person or you're practicing on your own. So I curated a couple of those for my own team. Hey, here's one with 100 different skills. And here's one with just 10 really good ones. 10 minutes a day, a minute of each of these things every day, you're going to see a big, big difference. I also sent them, I coach soccer. I sent them one that a guy put together, which is what to do with, one person and a wall, because certainly having a bounce back wall is a great way to work on things beyond just you and the ball, right? So can I work on that first touch? Can I work on hitting a ball, scanning over my shoulder, receiving the ball, working on my first touch, juggling it against the wall, all that sort of stuff, playing some wall ball with I have a daughter and a son. Can they play that together? Can I jump in with them? I'll probably do that today. So I gave them some concrete things to do. Number two, there's a lot of people, just giving, hey, here's do at home strength and conditioning stuff. So I gave my team that as well, that you can be doing some of this every day as well. So maybe not just go for a jog around the block, a slow run, but what's some different body weight strength and conditioning work that you can do in your living room or in your yard or whatever it is. So I've given them that. Number three, I want to motivate them, right? And I want to inspire them. So I inspired them by sending them a video of a top player and 50 great plays by this player. In soccer, it was a Diego Maradona video that I just came across. And so I sent them that 50 great plays, but I know these exist in every single sport out there. And I want them to see these moves and I want them to be inspired by it. And I want them to see these goals and I want them to go try these things. So I try to do that to inspire them. Then I created a little contest to motivate them. And so what I did was I sent him a video of a guy, like a trick shot artist, chipping balls into garbage cans, doing different tricks, juggling a ping pong ball and kicking it in a cup. And what I said to them is, go out there, try some of these trick shots, try some of these other things as well, videotape it. We'll post it to the group, post it to the team, and the best one at the end gets, I have a signed soccer ball from the local Major League Soccer team. And I'm like, the best one at the end of all this, the best trick shot that you catch on video gets this ball. And so I'll probably end up adding a few prizes to it, but I want to motivate them to enjoy their time with the ball and try something fun as well. And then if I can get different people on the team to start sharing this and up the ante, that would be great. And so I had my son and daughter conspiring yesterday afternoon of what they could do, maybe making use of our trampoline with a basket on it and a soccer ball, something like that. So invent your own as well. So I've tried to inspire them, to motivate them, give them something to do. And then, they have time. So here's some recommended books. Here's, recommended great biographies of athletes in the sport that they love, or a great documentary to watch about the sport they love or a different sport as well. So many libraries now are giving out free. I think New York Public Library just went totally free online, and so many others are. So being able, hopefully, to download some books and be inspired that way too. So this is what I've done with my group at this point, very specifically. But again, always coming back of, can the kids self-organize? Can the kids own this? Can they track what they're doing? Can they, put this down on a Google sheet or a whiteboard at their house, so that at the end of our time off, can we actually measure and look at, hey, that's what I've done, or look at that board that's empty and say, yeah, I didn't really fill anything in. And that's why I'm behind. Okay. So those are some of my concrete tools right now. I don't know, James, do we have any questions pop up there at this point? Oh, TeamSnap free, Brian. I think TeamSnap is not free for a team. It's like $15 a month. Yes, kids would need an email. There is an app called Heja, Heja. I think it's out of Sweden, and it's similar to TeamSnap, and it is free. So Heja, Heja. And look that one up. Okay, and Craig just wrote in, there's a free version with limited functionality. So I think if you get the free version of TeamSnap, it doesn't work. Rob also Band, B-A-N-D is another great app. So great questions. Cool. Team app, TeamSnap only costs the coaches, not the players. Yes, Eric, that's exactly right. And I think, like you said, it's like $15 a month or something like that. So lots of things. I mean, WhatsApp is a great group chat type thing where you can, post some videos and share with each other. James might be calling or talking about that here in a bit. All I'll say is we still live in the era of safe sport. And so we have to be careful, especially if we're working with young athletes, of being on a communication tool just with them, with 12-year-olds. I would never do that, right? So by using TeamSnap, their parents are looped into everything. There's a record of everything that's been sent. And so there's nothing, on outside of that from my communication standpoint, unless I'm communicating maybe directly via email with a parent. But I still usually use TeamSnap for all of that, because again, it just keeps a record of it all. Okay. Awesome. So James, let's let James jump in. He's going to give you, okay, one question. Kathy, I'll do your question. Hey, Kathy, how are you? And then I'm going to let James jump in, and then we'll save some time for more questions at the end. And so Kathy asks, how are you communicating with parents and engaging them to keep their interest in their athlete's success as at a high level? That's a great question. Again, like I said, with the group of parents specifically that I'm working with, a lot of them are really engaged in their kids doing well. And because it's 12-year-old boys, a lot of them are looking for ways to get their kids to stop kicking the ball around the house and bouncing off their walls, right? So with my group, they're not struggling with a lot of, do more. They're like, whoa, settle down. So, but I just keep them in the loop, right? I want them to watch these videos. I want them to be inspired as well. I want them to have, different challenges and stuff like that. So that's what I'm trying to do. But I think as a coach, we're constantly also, again, engaging the parents, especially when our kids are really young. And so, I think, again, I mentioned something like Google Sheets, right? You can create a Google spreadsheet where every kid can log their workouts for the day. Here's what I did soccer wise. Here's what I did for that. And everyone can see that, right? And if all of a sudden your kid's not logging stuff, that might engage the parent to be like, hey, you got to get out there. You got to log this stuff, or I got to log it for you. But look what a lot of people on your team are doing. This is going to be a really interesting time, I think, because I bet you there's a lot of athletes right now who are actually thankful for the time off, because maybe they're a little burnt out, maybe they're a little injured, and now those injuries can heal. And maybe, at this time, so we might actually find some kids who this space from sports actually rekindles a love of sport, or makes them say, finally have this conversation with their parent of, I just don't love this anymore. I don't want to do it. So I don't know what it's going to look like on the back end of this, but I think we'll have a lot of motivation being rekindled, a lot of kids getting healthy and rested for the first time in a long time, and but probably also some that finally have that conversation that say, I'm done with this. So anyway, and a NFHS has free courses as well, Rob. National Federation of High Schools. Perfect. Let me do last question, James, then it's you. On this topic, you've written before about using questionnaires for both parents and players. How do you manage discord in the answers? You mean if it's like disagreement that parents and players say something different of what their goals are and the time? I just encourage conversation. You'll never have more FaceTime with your kids than you're going to have right now. So have a conversation about, well, why don't you want this, or why don't you want that? But I think it's a really, really good sign as a parent that if your kid has to be begged to pick up the ball every day, or to go for that run every day, or to work out, there's part of them that are saying, this isn't for me. And then I think also, maybe this recognition that, like I think a lot of kids are also motivated by the group. And this is a great learning opportunity to, well, you know what, sometimes the group isn't there. How can you be self-motivated as well? Or how can the group motivate you virtually? Because a lot of kids just, love to do sport because they get to hang out with their friends for 2 hours in the evening. And so, maybe that's okay too. So, but I just encourage parents, if you're having some discord about this stuff, have a conversation. Why don't you want to go practice? What's the resistance to this? Here's what everyone else is doing. Why don't you just jump in? I don't know. It's a tough one there, because again, let's go back to like, who's in front of me. Man, I mean, different kids, different ages, like there's a lot on their plate right now. There's a lot they're thinking about. And, it's scary, right? And so, are you okay? Is everything good? Do you have any questions about what's going on? Because they're hearing our conversations with coworkers, or conversations with our boss, or maybe conversations with our employees, like having to let them go. So the kids hear that and they feel that. And if we can, just, constantly just check in with them, not just as athletes, but as human beings, I think that's a really, really important thing to do at this time, for sure. So awesome. I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to throw in James. So James, you want to jump in here? James Leith, Unleash the Athlete, and great friend and co-worker here at Changing the Game Project for many, many years now.
Yes, sir. Man, it's so great to see so many people. Man, it's a great transition, because you're talking about what can the kids do, and also they're going to come back from being burnt out. It's not just the kids, John, it's the pros. Candidly, there's been a couple pro basketball players that have told me this is okay. I'm okay for having a little bit of a break and getting some healing and some psychological just rest. And so I did a webinar yesterday on kind of this topic. It was called From Team Building to Person Building, how to continue coaching during COVID-19. And there's so many opportunities for us as coaches and for parents to facilitate conversations about what do you miss about sport, and who are you now that sport is not around. And I put my phone number on social media, which I do not recommend doing that, but I put my phone number out there for any athletes or coaches that wanted to chat. And I got a lot of great responses. I gotten a lot of good conversations. And one kid, his name's Charlie, he kept texting me. He's an 8th grade track athlete, and he texted me yesterday, and he was really bummed about not having a season. And I encouraged him. I said, you know what, Charlie, you actually do have a season. I would challenge you to keep your schedule up on the refrigerator, and all you need is a stopwatch and a track, or a piece of road or some dirt. And I want you to continue, because all he did was run. He was a sprinter. and did some mid-distance stuff. I said, just keep doing that, and keeping track of your times, and go against yourself. And at the end of the season, see how you've progressed. And he was super excited about that. What he wasn't excited about was he asked, oh, how do I motivate my teammates? And like John was saying, that's very difficult to do. And I told Charlie, I said, look, you can't motivate other people, and they're not your responsibility. And he said, well, I really feel like I want to help them. I was like, you can't help people like that. Like, you can only lead by example. You go out there. If you want to post your times and you want to say, hey, here was my time on this run today. Anybody want to challenge me? And, do it virtually, because we're not really allowed to be around each other. And then some states are just saying, stay home completely. And he was really pumped up about that. So what I'm going to be talking about today is creating a virtual practice session. This is specifically for coaches and for parents to share with their coaches. And a lot of the stuff was already referenced by John, like how to communicate with the athletes. I'm going to go specifically in what this kind of thing looks like. And I do this with the teams that I'm coaching as well. Excuse me. So if you are a softball coach, baseball coach, track, any kind of spring sport, your coaching is not over. You are not done coaching, and your athletes need you more than ever. If you're a part of a club that you would have been in a season right now, then I encourage you to do this with your athletes. And you want to think about committing to your athletes and thinking about what is it that you wish you learned when you were younger that doesn't have to do with sport. Now, all this stuff that I teach and that John teaches that isn't sport specific is applicable to anybody, right? So we're talking about leadership, talking about communication, talking about being a resilient individual. And so you want to think first, create a group chat. Now, there were some great ideas thrown out there as far as what to use. There was Remind, there was Band, Team Snap. The one that I've landed on is called Group Me. And the reason I like that is because it's the kids are probably already on WhatsApp and they have a whole bunch of groups. They're probably on Remind because that's very popular in the school systems. And so this one gives them another app, and it gives you a kind of a separation. When it comes to the safe sport thing, I always say if you're the only adult in a chat of kids, that's not a good idea. Throw in another assistant coach, throw in a parent assistant, whatever it is, just keep yourself safe. And if any of the kids privately message you, just say, hey, maybe send me an email through like with your parents. Just do whatever you can to cover yourself, because that's really important. Now, once you have that group chat, you want to set up the expectations. And so you let them know, look, this is not a daily chat. This is more just of an encouragement. This is an update on your scores, on maybe you went and worked out, whatever it is. But you want to keep that focused on the team, the team building aspect, the person building aspect within that group. The second thing is choose a video platform, because what you're going to do is you're going to send out a practice schedule, and it's going to be, all right, we're still going to have practice. It's going to be 2 times a week for 30 minutes. And those are arbitrary numbers, but that's kind of a place to start. Because if I'm an athlete and my coach reaches out to me and says, look, I know that we don't have practice, but we're still in season. And so I want you to join me and the rest of the team for 30 to 60 minutes. And we're just going to talk. We're going to hang out. We're going to discuss things. We're going to answer questions. Because the thing is, guys, that your kids need you. And you as a coach have a voice in their life that is unlike any other voice that is around them. And so when you find a video platform, the one that I use and the one John uses is Zoom. Now it's free up to, I think, 50 people or something, but it's definitely something that you can see all of them. And if you did it for 30 minutes, then that would be pretty cool. Now, let's talk about the timing. Younger kids, you got like 10, 11, 12, you're probably going to sit around 20 to 30 minutes. Older kids, Adriana says 100 people, 40 minutes max for free Zoom. Thank you, Adriana. Older kids, you can have them in there for an hour. You seniors in high school, they're the ones that are probably, in my experience, are taking it the hardest right now, just because a lot of them are done with sport. They're not going to play in college. And so, but then I noticed as we get into college and in the pros, the time on there kind of goes down. Like they're just like, give me the information, let's go. So you're looking at about 2 times a week. Now, organizing the session. Life Size is another good video platform. David, I've never heard of that one. I will definitely check it out. I'm also going to, let me post this. My original, the webinar from yesterday, this is the link to it. And so it's up. I just sent that to David here. Boom. So that's the longer version, and we're going short today. So organizing the session, you can just give you some thoughts, right? First one's going to be chaos. It's just like the first day of practice, right? Like, so you're going to have kids who are excited and they don't know how to use the technology. And so you're going to have to walk them through that. So you want to share with them the why. Why are we doing this? And the answer is because you care about them. That's it. You just care about them. And this isn't a hour-long session on how many push-ups to do, how many squats to do. That's not what it's about. This is speaking life into your athletes. This is taking life lessons, talking about self-leadership, integrity, honor, things that are important to you and important to your organization that you want to teach your kids. You want to share the practice schedule on that first day, and then also ask for their feedback. Is this enough? Is this too much? The commitment is twice a week. The commitment is once a week for an hour. Whatever it is, get their feedback on it and be ready to field some questions. Then you'll jump into some group chat behavior, making sure that they're not just throwing in a bunch of memes all the time, because then it just gets overwhelming. It just becomes more noise. Introduce the basic outline. Be flexible. The first 10 minutes is going to be, hey, how you doing? How's your aunt? So-and-so got a new dog. Zoom lifted the time limit for educators. Well, that's cool. Okay, cool. You're going to that first 10 minutes is you're just kind of hanging out. I like to call it community, right? That's your community time. And then you're going to go into speaking life into your athletes and just teaching them whatever the lesson is, whether maybe it's character development. You're going to spend some time on that. And then at about half an hour mark, if you're going to go an hour, which you'll find yourself, it'll fill up real fast. You want to let them have a discussion. Let them talk. Maybe even have the captains, if you have captains, have them speak to the team or lead the discussion. But as a coach, best thing you can do is just kind of sit back and let them talk. And when it gets silent, let there be a pause. And it's okay for them to struggle a little bit. That's part of finding their voice. That's part of them being somebody who's going to be a good leader. It's leadership development. It's really what it is. Then at the end, 45-minute mark or so, you're going to assign something to watch, something to read, something to create, or something to do, or a combination of them, right? So something to watch. Tons of TED Talks out there. I created a 10-10-10 list a few days ago and sent it out, and it was like 10 TED Talks, 10 books, and 10 podcasts to listen to. Jerry's book's on there. John's recent book, Every Moment Matters, is on there. Those are definitely good books for you guys to start out on. But one of the good things with older teams is doing like a book club type thing. Maybe you find a book by John Maxwell, or you do one of Jerry's books for the athletes. There's a lot of great books out there, and you can ask John, you can ask myself. We have a lot of recommendations. But then at the end, you say, okay, this is what I want you to do. Like, here's your workout. Here's your challenge. Create something like maybe your values, or create a workout schedule and then send it to me. I see a lot of coaches posting stuff about doing Google Forms and doing Google Documents and having them share that. Those are fantastic ideas. I want to give these kids something to do, something to look forward to. Let's see. You do an EDU email, yeah. 10-10-10 info. I'm going to send that to John. John will send that out to you. Wolfpack. So John O'Sullivan just said Wolfpack. It's a fantastic book. Wolfpack, Hard Hat, Training Camp. Those are short books that Training Camp's a story, so is Hard Hat, but the Wolf Pack book is beautiful. It's really cool. I highly suggest that. So that is the virtual classroom. John, you want to jump back in here? But yeah, so that is the virtual classroom. Like I said before, your players need you more now than ever. And the voice that you have, the things that you can teach them, it reminds me, I'll leave you with this story. When I was a senior in high school, I tried out for the volleyball team and I was terrible. I never played volleyball before. Long story short, I made the team and the coach told me, you're not going to play much. Your role is to be a motivator. Your role is to be an encourager. And you're not very good. I'm like, all right, easy, coach. We had a good relationship. But the thing I remember most about that season, it's not about when we won league. It's not about like all the relationships that I had. It was this 3-hour conversation that I had with my coach, Bob McCarthy of Clovis, California. On our way home from Vegas tournament, he gave me a 3-hour dissertation on how to be in an interview, how to present myself to get a job. It was invaluable information for a senior in high school to learn. And to this day, I still put some of that stuff to work. Every time I go in on an interview, whether it's a podcast or for a job or to speak at a conference, I still think of Bob McCarthy. And so those are the moments that I'm asking you to create with your athletes. And those are the moments that your athletes are dying for right now. They want those moments so bad right now. So provide that leadership, provide those experiences for your athletes, because this is a time that we as a species is going to remember for the rest of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
John, you're on, buddy.
Thanks, James. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Again, I've watched James's entire webinar. We'll send you all the link to that. James just put it in the messages there as well, but you can just sign up and grab that. It's really, really good and goes, obviously, it's an hour into what he just covered in 15, 20 minutes there. But you can post some questions in the chats and we'll go through these now as well. But what I want to also say, just a really interesting story to piggyback on what James just said. Yesterday, Jerry and I interviewed Austin Hatch on the podcast. And if you're a basketball player, you'd know who Austin is. If not, a great inspirational 15-minute thing to send to your athletes right now. Austin grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. When he was 8 years old, his dad, who was a pilot, was flying him, his brother, his sister, and his mom up to Michigan. And their plane crashed, and his mom and his brother and his sister passed away. And Austin survived, and his dad survived, and they moved on together. Austin became a fantastic basketball player, got offered a scholarship to his dream school, University of Michigan, by John Beeline, was super, super thrilled. 9 days later, they're in another plane crash, and his dad and his stepmom passed away. And Austin survived again. So this guy survived 2 plane crashes that killed his mom, his stepmom, his father, and his siblings. And after that second crash, he ended up in a induced coma for 6 months. He ended up, when he finally woke up, having to learn to walk again, having to learn to move again, and was committed to wanting to play basketball again. And he told us one of the things that really inspired him was John Beeline, the Michigan coach, now with the Cavaliers, came and visited him in the hospital and said to him, if you ever get yourself to Michigan, I can't wait to coach you. And just like that moment sticks with Austin, and that's the power that we have as a coach. And so don't take your influence lightly in these moments. That's something you send to your kids, that's something you say, that's something you do, won't have an impact, because it really can. And just telling them, I can't wait to coach you all again. Do this work. I can't wait to see where you'll all be when we get back together. It's just super powerful. And, we'll probably put that podcast up here in the next week or two with Austin. But he talked about how those words inspired him to get better, inspired him to rehabilitate, inspired him to get back to make it, to play basketball at the University of Michigan. and get a degree and move on. So there's a lot of, a lot of adversity out there in the world, and perhaps, not being able to practice for a couple months is not the worst type of adversity we could ever face. So anyway, that's not to lighten anything that we are facing right now, but there's a lot of stuff going on out there. Okay. So again, if you have any questions, please ask them right now, or post them in those chat there. We'd love to get a few more questions. The ones have been great so far. The reading list. I also posted a book, Coach to Coach. We just had Martin Rooney on the podcast. He's one of the founders of Parisi Speed School, has been coaching Olympic pro athletes, worked for 2 NFL teams. And this is a great little fable on sort of a young coach and his mentor coach. It's really, really good. You can read it in a night if you want, or two. But it was a book that, like I said in the podcast, for me and my own personal development, I was reading it. It was a couple weeks ago, and I was going out and doing different things at practice because I read that book. And there's not that many books out there that make you do that. So, yeah, awesome. Okay, here is Kathy. What are your top 5 reads for 11 to 14-year-old athletes, for coaches, for parents? Okay, Kathy. I'll throw a couple here, and then James, you can chime in too. So, from the mental perspective, I think for 11 to 14-year-olds, find the biography of an inspirational athlete. And a lot of them have sort of a children's version of them as well. So what's your sport? Who's a great athlete? Who's a great role model? Let them read that. A guy named Jim Afremoe has a great book called The Champion's Mind, and he's got a version called The Young Champion's Mind, which is really, really good on just the sort of the mental side of the game as well. But I think that's great. James, any thoughts for kids?
Yeah, I love Relentless.
Yes, Tim Grover. Yep.
Yeah, by Tim Grover. That's one I give constantly. The 21 Immutable Laws of Leadership. I think that's
For an 11 to 14-year-old.
Yeah, they're little stories. John Maxwell has little stories in that one, and you can. I've done maybe not 11, but closer to like 14, like maybe captains stuff. Those are really great.
Yeah,
those are the ones I give out the most. Outside of Training Camp is a good one. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
Those are,
and the hard hat. Yeah.
And the hard hat. John Gordon stuff like the positive dog, things that aren't really specific to athletics are still good. Those are still good. And I think, John, just like thinking about, like, there's a lot of room for anybody who wants to write more books for athletes. There's a lot of space out there. Definitely.
Stay tuned in 2021 for Jerry and my book on that topic.
There are some podcasts out there.
Well, let's finish that. Let's finish this question first, because she also said coaches. I think we kind of covered coaches, Kathy, with Coach to Coach, with Win the Day, Jerry's book. Hopefully, I know, Kathy, you've read Every Moment Matters. Inside Out Coaching, Joe Ehrman, fantastic. Someone else put up What Drives Winning, Brett Ledbetter, great book. Win Forever, Pete Carroll, I happen to like a lot, also Above the Line.
That's a great one to listen to because he reads it and you can just feel the excitement.
Win Forever.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun. I listen to it at least once every 6 months.
Yep. Someone else put their 9-year-old read The Energy Bus, so that was great. And then
Season of Life. Well, have you ever read that
Season
one?
of Life? Yeah, that's also about Joe Ehrman. That's about his coaching. In there is great. There's so many. My goodness.
Yeah. Legacy is my favorite.
Yeah.
For sure.
For parents, I think the book that I always recommend that parents start with, that I think they should give away in the delivery room, would be Mindset, Carol Dweck. Is just a great lens to look at your kids. I started out with Madeline Levine today, and one of her books, The Price of Privilege, is great. I think understanding your kids, if your own kids, if you have Boys Adrift is fantastic. Leonard Sachs. If you have girls, Untangled, Lisa D'Amour, I believe, is that author. Is great.
I'm
I
currently reading
always,
this one right here, John. He's Not Lazy.
he's not lazy, and it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So man, there's tons of those as well. Kathy and May will put together a full list of this coming up, because certainly if you go to changingthegameproject.com and look under one of the menu drop downs is recommended resources. And I have a huge page of my favorite books. And then every year we've done our favorite books of the year, and sort of reviewed them. And so there is a ton of books there. I mean, Legacy, The Culture Code. Oh, there's so many. So, yeah.
I agree with Bud.
Yeah.
Bud just
What did
said,
Bud
John,
say?
don't be modest. Every parent should read Changing the Game Project. And
Thank you,
I
Bud.
second
Thank you,
that.
Bud.
Second that for sure.
Yeah, that's doing well. My publisher is still happy about that book. It's still doing well. So,
I did a coronavirus book challenge with some coaches and set up a Google form to find out what coaches are going to read and what books that they recommend. And I'm putting together that list right now, and it mentions all the books we've already mentioned, and so we're definitely on the right path.
yeah. Hey, Brian Healy, great question. Brian Healy wrote, from the tech perspective, the culture of this sort of communication is not known within your club's parents and players. Maybe they don't value it, or that's the reason they don't accept it as part of the coaching culture. How do you gently introduce this to get buy-in from parents? Well, I think, that's a great question. And Brian, the big challenge with that is, right now we don't really have a choice. Right? Like, that this is all there is. So please, by all means, like, this is where we're going to be, right? It's like saying, it's like a parent, it's like having practice at field A, but the parent insists on going to field B. Well, guess what? Practice isn't there. Right now, this is where practice is. This is where we're going to be meeting and communicating. And so you kind of have to get there. Now, I get it, right? Like, some people might not have phone signals, might not have internet, might not have things like that. And if you have those type of people, maybe you're going to have to put something in writing and mail it to them, right? And that's just understanding, once again, who's in front of you. I have kids that don't necessarily always have access to everything right away, or their parents don't necessarily speak English as a first language. And so I have to figure out how to get them the stuff to make sure that they're seeing it as well. So that's knowing your group. But again, if this is where practice is now, please do your best to get on board is all you can do. And then don't take it personally when they don't, because you're just doing everything you can, right? You can lead that horse to water, as they say. Okay, could I make a list of that titles? I'm whipping through them rather quickly. Thanks, Peter. I will. Like I said, I think I'll get that out and send that out to everyone as well. Kathy said that as well. Mark Hesse, I think your message, and guys, just so you know, Mark is one of those people who works with Olympic athletes. So thank you, Mark, from USA Swimming, for chiming in. I think your message to parents and athletes is that you're more than just athletes who are people. Affects performance in the sport just as our physical training. So yes, seasonal life. Ivan, thanks for the shout out for Every Moment Matters. And yes, Amazon is still printing those, maybe not shipping that fast. If you want a signed copy from me, you can just email me, and we'll figure that one out for you as well.
The Way of Champions Conference is still on.
Yes, right now the Way of Champions, we spoke to the U.S. Olympic Committee.
Let's go.
So that's still on there right now. People are still signing up, so that's great. Mark Hesse again, U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, the Quality Coaching Framework. Just Google that; you can find it. Really, really good. Done, Chris Snyder and Wade Gilbert. I mean, our podcast has a ton of great interviews. Someone asked about other podcasts for kids. I think I would look into your sport. I know in the soccer world, there's a lot of former players that have podcasts now that I think provide really, really interesting insight. In the leadership, the coaching space, there's been some famous coaches. Stuart Lancaster, who used to coach England rugby, did his own podcast, and he posts a lot of great resources on LinkedIn. He's still a professional rugby coach for Leinster in Ireland, and he's always posting stuff. Anthony Hudson, Soccer World, MLS, New Zealand national team coach. He had a podcast called Masterminds for a while. When he got fired from the Colorado Rapids in Major League Soccer, he spent a year traveling around the world interviewing great coaches, and has a ton of great stuff in there as well. So, yeah. So we're right about 10 o'clock. I promised you all an hour. This was great. Thank you all. Great questions, great engagement. This was awesome. I got a lot of emails saying, I can't get on. So thank you all for jumping on early. We will be sending the link out. You can share it with other people as well, other people in your circles. If you think this is helpful, we'll probably provide a link where they can sign up and get some good stuff as well. So James, thank you, man, for
Thanks for having me.
making
It's
the
always
time
a
this
pleasure.
morning. And all of you, thank you so much. We'll get this recording uploaded and out to you ASAP. And also we'll consolidate our notes and include that as well. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all the thank yous, and good luck. Please stay healthy, stay well, do your part to let's make this thing go away as quickly as possible. All right. Love you all. See you, James.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.